Welcome to the 38th sitting of the Tobago House of Assembly's 2013 to 2017 session, which took place at the Assembly Chamber at Jerningham Street.
I beg to stand to move the motion before us standing in my name. It says, whereas the Executive Council is mandated by the Tobago House of Assembly Act 40 of 1996 to manage the socio-economic development of the island, and whereas funding to the Tobago House of Assembly for fiscal 2016 fell below the budgetary request submitted in June of this year in accordance with the Tobago House of Assembly Act 40 of 96, Section 41, 1, 2, and 3. And whereas the Assembly is committed to managing the development of Tobago in accordance with the Comprehensive Economic Development Plan, CDP 2.0 2013 to 2017, despite this shortfall in funding, be it resolved that this Honourable House mandate the Executive Council to adopt and implement the necessary policy measures to manage the fiscal resources available to the Tobago House of Assembly for fiscal 2016 in a manner that would bring optimal benefits to the people of Tobago. And be it further resolved that this House mandate the Executive Council to develop appropriate strategies that will mitigate against any negative impact on the Tobago economy in light of the global economic uncertainty. And be it further resolved that this House accept the revised budgetary measures as recommended by the Executive Council for fiscal 2016. Some of the major projects that were submitted include the Scarborough Enhancement Program at a cost of $7 million, expansion of the Alcohol Administrative Complex, $12 million, Human Resource Development Program, $8 million, acquisition of buses, $15 million, construction of the Chauvin Roundabout, $8 million, construction of 2 early childhood centers, $10 million, construction of indoor complexes, $7 million, construction of the Canaan Bonaccord Sporting Complex, $7 million, construction of pavilions and sporting facilities, $4 million, an expanded agricultural access road program, $46 million, repairs to the old Scarborough Market, $25.9 million, the establishment of a microbiology lab at Hope, $4.5 million, the urban reforestry program, $10 million, operationalization of the Shore Park Cultural Complex, $35 million, completion of the Charlottesville Mini Mall, $10 million, major improvements to secondary roads, $40 million, the Milford Road bridges, $25 million, road resurfacing program, $45 million, the Adventure Mini Mall, $6.5 million, upgrading of the Scarborough Community Center, $2.5 million, upgrading of Pan Theaters, $2 million. So, presiding officer, development of the Corland Estate Land Development, $40 million. The Goldsboro Agricultural Estate Irrigation Program, $10.5 million. Upgrades to Manta Lodge and the construction of Sanctuary Villas, $55 million. Mr. Presiding Officer, the total funding requirement to advance the THA's priority projects in fiscal 2016 is approximately $639.5 million.
Mr. Presiding Officer, this is really about the challenge of doing more with less and going beyond the talk. And I'm saying that we have got to action that mandate of doing more with less. Because, Mr. Presiding Officer, I want us to recognize that this conversation is not just about us. It's about everybody out there It's about the employers, it's about the employees, and it's about the people of Tobago. Because I'm suggesting, Mr. Presiding Officer, that this particular conversation is taking place in a different environment from the conversation that took place in June of this year in the same place. Our posture and our purpose in June were different from our posture and purpose here this morning. The Secretary will have identified the situation. The situation has improved over what it was in fiscal 2015, Mr. Presiding Officer. But the reality is that there is no way that we are able to deliver what we would have spoken about, and I wouldn't say promise, what we would have spoken about in June. And therefore, our mantra to the people, and what the theme that I believe will guide today's discussions, is delivery with predictability and with integrity. Because we must have the level of integrity that allows us to make the kind of commitments to the people of Tobago. And the people of Tobago can be assured that we have the integrity to keep that promise to them. And Mr. Presiding Officer, I'm just saying that this cannot be just about a report. This discussion is a discussion that must continue between the Assembly and the people. And on behalf of all the secretaries and assistant secretaries here, I want to tell the people of Tobago that from our perspective, we are committed to our mantra of doing more with less. But I'm suggesting that that mantra has to be everybody's mantra. And I'm suggesting that giving and getting value for money has to be everybody's guiding principle. And I'm suggesting, Mr. Presiding Officer, that if we do that, we will be in a position to ensure that we can come back here at the end of this fiscal year and accept the fact that we have kept our pact with the people. Mr. Presiding Officer, we have a situation, as the Secretary indicated, where we had less money than we asked for, but we have more hope than we had in fiscal 2015. I am at the stage in my life, Mr. Presiding Officer, where I don't get too excited about very many things, but for my pressure. But I am a little heartened by the signals that I'm getting from the central government. And I think that one of the areas that gives us some degree of comfort that we will be able, not necessarily to surmount all the challenges, but to alleviate some of the negatives that are besetting us at this point in time, is our relationship with the central government. And I just want to share why I have that degree of comfort. All of us will be aware of the meeting that I would have had with the Prime Minister. And at that meeting, a number of issues were raised, some by me, some by the Prime Minister and his team. And coming out of that was I'm not just interested in the talk. The signals and, of course, the policies and the statements, and in some cases the actions and the activities that came out after that discussion. One of the things that we put on the table, Mr. Presiding Officer, is that the Tobago House of Assembly, and I say the Tobago House of Assembly, should be represented on boards which, in the opinion of the Assembly, impact on the delivery or the delivery areas over which the Assembly has responsibility.
So as I move on, Mr. Presiding Officer, I want to state that our approved recurrent expenditure for 2013 stands at about $171,330,000. And this is how we plan to utilize the funding for the fiscal period. Our strategies are simple, but they follow or they build on the strategies over the last 3 years since taking up a position in the Division of Tourism and Transportation. In terms of airlift, Mr. Presiding Officer, our strategy is to maintain the current airlift to the destination. We have seen the return of the Virgin Airlines. We have Caribbean Airlines out of JFK, British Airways, who would have increased their rotation over the last year. We have the Condor flight and Gull Airlines. And we want to ensure that we keep those airlines flying to the destination, because we all know the importance of ensuring that there is greater accessibility to Tobago. And I must point out, Mr. Presiding Officer, that all contracts are up to date, contrary to some of the issues you may hear. And so for this fiscal period, we will be targeting 2 new airlines to the destination for this season. One from North America, serving either Canada or USA. We have been behind a Canadian flight for the longest time, but that continues to remain an outstanding arrangement for us. And we are also looking to secure a direct flight from the Scandinavian countries, and discussions on that have started. Again, we will utilize a direct contact approach where our team will attend missions such as routes and have meetings with executives who make the decision. And I'm very pleased that our transport unit have been working endlessly and have been achieving many successes in that regard. And we are very pleased and excited to welcome the new flight from Manchester, which is Thomas Cook, in winter of 2016.
So there are a number of things that we want to look at in terms of how we do things this year. One of those things has to do with the restructuring and reorganization of the division, in particular in the areas of procurement and accounting. We have already commissioned an audit report during the course of this year. We would have received the report from the auditor. There are a number of recommendations there, and we are in the process of looking at those recommendations and seeking to adopt them, so that by the time we start actually doing most of our spending in 2016, we will be operating in a different sphere where we can demonstrate to the public of Tobago greater transparency and greater accountability in terms of how we do things. And in that light, we want to appeal to the public, those persons who are stakeholders who do business with us, contractors, suppliers of goods and services, that we work along with the new system, that we try to ensure that things are done in the right manner. And in that way, the whole island benefits, because as I'm saying, this year, our approach has to be about all of us working together for the good of everyone. So that upgrade, that restructuring and reorganization of the division is critical. Another important aspect of our division, in terms of how we function this year, would be in terms of monitoring and evaluation. We have to have greater project management. We have to limit wastage. We have to improve on the way in which we plan and implement our projects, and how we monitor them while they're being implemented, to ensure that we stay within budget and that we can make adjustments when things go out of order. Another aspect of that has to be upgrade of our senior technical management. We run a division that spends hundreds of millions of dollars during the course of any given year. And Tobago and the division deserve to have the best technical expertise and so on available to it. So very early in 2016, we are going to be seeking to upgrade our technical capacity in certain key areas. We're working alongside some persons at the moment, getting some advice in terms of the areas that we need to beef up on, so that we can expect, the division can expect, Tobago can expect that the division will be doing things in a better manner. We have some serious challenges that lie ahead of us in areas like coastal erosion and so on, and we need the expertise to basically allow us to treat with that. Another critical imperative in 2016 is going to be the restructuring and reorganization of the unemployment relief program. The Assistant Secretary in the division, Mr. Beckers, will speak more about the program when he makes his contribution, but I just want to inform the House, I want to inform the Tobago public, that we are in the process of doing some restructuring in the URP. We want to change the levels of management that we employ in the program. The Tobago House of Assembly has been very kind to the URP over the years. This year we have an allocation of $72 million. We have spent about 68 in the previous financial year. And we believe at the division that we therefore need to focus more acutely on the management and on delivery. So we want to focus on delivery in key areas: the environmental program, the maintenance of beaches and so on, small construction, agriculture, training, and training not just at the levels that we have done in the past, but we need to also look at other levels of persons in Tobago who the URP can facilitate in upgrading their skills.
Mr. Presiding Officer, the Division of Health and Social Services supports the Trinidad and Tobago Solid Waste Management Company Limited, SWIMCOL, in conjunction with Environment Tobago in its initiative of the new waste management and recycling initiatives in Tobago, and pledge the Tobago House of Assembly's continued support of the initiatives. The SWIMCOL team gave its commitment to assist the Tobago House of Assembly in its integrated waste management, and SWIMCOL highlighted critical areas for immediate review and action, including public education, waste segregation, integrated waste management at the Studley Park landfill, modifying waste collection systems, and commercializing waste. Mr. Presiding Officer, recent initiatives in Tobago included beverage container cleanup program, 11,000 kilograms of beverage containers collected from the ambient environment. And that kind of cleanup program was realized. The Green Office Week produced 155 kilograms of recyclables collected from the participating Tobago House of Assembly department. Mr. Presiding Officer, this fiscal year, the Department of Public Health Services will undertake a zero waste pilot project at Darrell Spring and environs, and at schools in collaboration with the Division of Education, Youth Affairs and Sport to kickstart the waste minimization and recycling project.
Mr. Presiding Officer, the names of projects to be undertaken for fiscal period 2016 is 1, the Goldsboro Agri Estates irrigation program, the agricultural access roads, repairs to the Scarborough Abattoir, the Scarborough Market refurbishment, street vending, and construction of Goldsboro Farmers Market, reforestation program, parking house, coastal erosion with specifically targeting Pigeon Point Heritage Park. Mr. Presiding Officer, the Goldsboro Agricultural Estate Irrigation Program. This project is one of the island's most, or this area is one of the most active of the farming estates across Tobago. And access to water for irrigation is the most challenging hindrance to farmers who farm on the estate. There is currently no water mains going into the estate to provide sufficient pressured water. However, investigation, Mr. Presiding Officer, would have indicated that an active river passes through that estate, and if we tap onto the water resources there, it should provide the necessary supplemental water required for irrigation in that specific area.
The division recognizes that despite the grants offered by my colleagues in finance, that many still find it difficult to get started. The division will therefore be outfitting the old space of the Culture Department, the GNV building, to accommodate startup businesses for those in the creative sector that will be accessible to tourists from the port. Included in that space will also be the products of the art pieces of students who have successfully completed in the Chief Secretary's art competition. The division will continue its Culture in Motion program launched last year to engage performers in cultural shows on the Esplanade for tourists. I am heartened that we have been requested to extend that program to the Pigeon Point area. The division has also invested significantly in the film industry, in facilitating training both on the island and off the island with persons in the sector. We continue to partner with private sector, to name a few. The recent anti-bullying competition using technology of film with Nigel Ryan. With Wayne John on the Tobago Treasures project, where in addition to assisting with funding, the ABCD program, the Asset-Based Community Development Program, has provided him with research collated from the communities. Mr. Presiding Officer, I strongly feel that public sector must resist the urge to fill the gaps that may end up competing with private sector, and instead find meaningful ways to partner with those who are committed to doing the work and hopefully get them to a place where they can stand on their own and in turn assist others.
We therefore, Mr. Presiding Officer, will focus on 8 broad areas over the next year: building literacy and numeracy, direct interventions in schools that might be considered in academic watch or underperforming, building capacity among our school leaders, strengthening, as I said before, the implementation of the curriculum, catering to all learners, ECC, physically challenged, and strengthening our tech work programs, institutional strengthening, research and policy development, and of course, some level of infrastructural development. Mr. Presiding Officer, some of the programs we'd want to do under building literacy and numeracy would speak to workshops on reading in content areas, training on teaching comprehension skills, training of creative writing, in particular for our SCA. We'd want to have targeted initiatives to improve the performance of our boys at both the primary and secondary school levels, and we'd also have strategies, Mr. Presiding Officer, for our advanced learners. Some of the strategies that we intend to do as part of this school intervention strategies, of course, besides the hiring of these additional social workers, guidance counselors, educational psychologists, we intend to work along with the Department of Youth with the revival of student councils, Mr. Presiding Officer. We are also in collaboration with the judiciary for the establishment of the juvenile court projects, a pilot project at 4 schools. We're hoping before the end of this term here, Mr. Presiding Officer, to do one trial session. Essentially, Mr. Presiding Officer, this peer resolution juvenile court project that we're doing in conjunction with the judiciary involved where students were identified in the 4 pilot schools who were trained to serve as peer assessors, to serve as peer counselors.
One of the first projects I want to speak to, Mr. Presiding Officer, is the completion of the Colon Development Project. Right, we recently got, I don't know if you would have been privy to it because you live pretty close to that development, Mr. Presiding Officer. I don't know if you might have been privy to seeing the sewage treatment plant being delivered to the Corland estate. So we recently got this sewage treatment plant coming in from the States. I think it was it's either Texas or Virginia, if my memory serves me correct. It recently came in, cleared by customs. We have that to install. We have the lotification to do, and we have the roads to complete and pave, and that will be the end of that project. And we still have a price tag for that project at $40 million. So that has been allocated to the division in the reallocation process, and I'm pretty pleased to say that it should be able to treat with the matter, Mr. Presiding Officer. The completion of the 32 townhouses in Adventia Phase 2, I think the Secretary of Finance would have alluded to that construction. That should be completed in the vicinity of February or March of 2016. 16 two-bedroom townhouses, and 16 three-bedroom townhouses at a price tag of $6.9 million. Mr. Presiding Officer, we cannot, and let me say this slowly, we cannot continue to sustain building units at a construction cost of $900,000 to $1 million.
Mr. Presiding Officer, we propose to treat with the funding gap for fiscal 2016 by doing the following. 1. Limiting recurrent expenditure to 2015 levels, net of any extraordinary payment, and to transfer the difference estimated at $405 million to finance THA's priority capital expenditure. Second, deploy contingency account resources estimated at $100 million as at the end of September 2015. Third, no new projects and programs will be considered for funding or to be undertaken unless the division sources its own funding from within current year's allocation and prior approval is granted by the Executive Council. Fourth, divisions of the Assembly are to limit minor equipment purchases unless when necessary. And fifth, a midterm review of expenditures will be undertaken within all divisions of the Tobago House of Assembly to analyze utilization of resources and expenditure trends to facilitate the optimal use and the redeployment of the Assembly's financial resources where necessary.
Members, the question is, whereas the Executive Council is mandated by the Tobago House of Assembly Act number 40 of 1996 to manage the socio-economic development of the island, and whereas funding to the Tobago House of Assembly for fiscal 2016 fell below the budgetary request submitted in June of this year in accordance with the Tobago House of Assembly Act number 40 of 1996, section 41, subsections 1, 2, and 3, and whereas the Assembly is committed to managing the development of Tobago in accordance with the Comprehensive Economic Development Plan, CDP 2.0, 2013 to 2017, despite the shortfall in funding, be it resolved that this Honorable House mandate the Executive Council to adopt and implement the necessary policy measures to manage the financial resources available to the Tobago House of Assembly for fiscal 2016 in a manner that would bring optimal benefits to the people of Tobago, and be it further resolved that this House mandate the Executive Council to develop appropriate strategies that will mitigate against any negative impact on the Tobago economy in light of the global economic uncertainty, and be it further resolved that this House accept the revised budgetary measures as recommended by the Executive Council for fiscal 2016. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is therefore carried.
Thank you for joining us for the 38th Tobago House of Assembly 2013 to 2017 plenary session.
you.